A 4-decade-old murder has been solved with the help of genetic genealogy technology, New Hampshire officials announced Thursday. It was early in the morning of September 28, 1981, when the body of then 23-year-old Laura Kempton was discovered in her apartment in Portsmouth. She had entered alone after a night out with a friend. The autopsy determined she died of massive trauma to the left side of her head. The evidence revealed a male DNA profile, but authorities, despite pursuing hundreds of leads and suspects, were never able to identify the suspected killer until now. Beginning in 2022, authorities reanalyzed DNA samples from the crime scene using forensic genetic genealogy technology and, on Thursday, July 20, 2023, publicly identified the suspect as Ronnie James Lee. Lee, who was 21 at the time of the Kemptons' death, died of acute cocaine intoxication at the age of 45 on February 9, 2005. If he were still alive, New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella said he would have charged Lee with first-degree murder for knowingly causing her death in connection with sexual assault. It is my hope that this conclusion and announcement will be the long-awaited first step in providing what closure the criminal justice system can provide for Laura Kempton's family and community, Formella said. The Portsmouth Police Department should be commended for its commitment and perseverance in seeking justice for Ms. Kempton and her family. Formella said during a press briefing Thursday that the case has been officially closed and marked as solved, and noted the news may be bittersweet for Kempton's family. Formella's office shared a statement from Kempton's family in which they expressed deep gratitude to Portsmouth Police for solving the case. Their diligence and determination, along with extraordinary personal commitment over the past decades, have led to this moment for Laura, the family's statement said. Kempton was enrolled at Portsmouth Beauty School studying hairdressing and had just started working at a gift store in town at the time of her death, according to the Attorney General's report. She was consistently described by those who knew her as an outgoing free spirit with a big personality and a love for new wave fashion. After years of failing to find a DNA match in various databases, in 2021, investigators discussed utilizing forensic genetic genealogy using whole genome sequencing, which had recently developed as a viable option for suspect identification in cold cases. In May 2022, the suspect's DNA profile matched to two relatives in a third-party public genetic genealogy database, leading them to Lee, according to the report. In June, investigators determined that Lee's DNA profile matched that of several DNA samples obtained from Kempton's apartment following the attack, including from a cigarette butt. The evidence establishes beyond a reasonable doubt that Ronnie James Lee committed first-degree murder. Prosecutors said the evidence pointed to a calculated break-in and sexually motivated crime that resulted in more violence than the perpetrator originally anticipated. The murder weapon was believed to be a glass bottle. Laura was a victim of an unspeakable act of violence, Portsmouth Police Chief Mark Newport said during the press briefing. The members of the Portsmouth Police Department have never forgotten about Laura and any of the other victims of our unsolved homicides, he added. Lee served in the U.S. Army until 1981, investigators said. He was convicted in 1987 of charges stemming from a burglary that included a sexual assault in Keene, New Hampshire, and was incarcerated from December 1987 to July 1990 in state prison. Six years ago, Kayla Unbehaun vanished from her Illinois hometown in an apparent abduction by her mother, who did not have custody. 6 months ago, the 9-year-old's photo appeared on an episode of the Netflix show Unsolved Mysteries about parental abductions, an age progression image flashing on screen to depict what she would look like now. And last month, someone at a North Carolina store recognized Kayla as a missing child, setting off a chain of events that led to her mother's arrest and Kayla's reunification with her father in the Midwest. Here's everything we know about Kayla's abduction and safe recovery, and the questions that remain unanswered in the case. Kayla was born on July 5, 2008 to Ryan Iskirka and Heather Unbehaun in the western suburbs of Chicago. After the couple split, a judge awarded the child's father permanent custody. Kayla was spending July 4th with her mother in 2017, however, and was scheduled to be returned to her father the next day, on her 9th birthday. According to police interviews, Heather was last seen packing her belongings up to the roof of her car, Mr. Iskirka wrote in a GoFundMe established just days later. Her closest family members indicated she went on a camping trip to an unknown location in Wisconsin and was expected to return on Wednesday, July 5th at 7 p.m. for a parenting time exchange with me. Heather and Kayla did not show up for the court-ordered exchange, and the police were immediately contacted and an investigation was launched. It was discovered that all of Heather's social media had been cancelled and her phone turned off. As far as we know, no one has been able to reach her or has talked to her since the 4th of July. Because of this, the following day I had filed a missing persons report for both Kayla and Heather. Heather also did not show up for a court date motioned by her on Friday, June 7th. Her lawyer had not talked to her for days, was unaware of what happened, and was very concerned. After Mr. Iskirka filed the missing persons reports, Ms. Unbehaun was charged in 2017 with child abduction, a Class 4 felony, the Kane County State's attorney said Tuesday in a statement. A judge set her bail at $10,000 and, since then, South Elgin police pursued numerous leads and tips, working with police agencies from around the country in an attempt to locate the child and Unbehaun. Mr. Iskirka, meanwhile, was appealing for donations and information, writing on the GoFundMe that he planned to use the assistance to hire a private investigator and any additional cost concerning the search for them and their health and safety for when they are found. The safety and return of Kayla is the top priority of all of my family and I, and any help we receive through this funding is greatly appreciated, he wrote. Between July 2017 and May 2023, the page raised just over $2,500 toward its $10,000 goal, the last donation recorded on the site coming in nearly 4 years ago. In November, however, Kayla's picture featured on an episode of Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries. At the end of Abducted by a Parent, the final installment of the program's third Netflix season, missing posters and age progression images are shown from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. For just under 5 seconds, a photo of Kayla at 9 appears on screen alongside a picture of what she might look like as a teenager. A Bring Kayla Home Facebook page, meanwhile, was also promoting the age progression image, sharing it as recently as 21st of April. Created the same day as the GoFundMe, 5 days after Kayla was last seen in Wheaton with her mother, the page has more than 7,000 followers. Kayla and her mother were at Westgate Regional Shopping Center on Saturday evening 13th of May in Asheville, North Carolina, when they caught the notice of a person at upmarket consignment shop Plato's Closet, according to authorities. That person recognized Unbehaun and recalled that the child was missing, Kane County State's Attorney's Office posted Tuesday on social media. A store employee immediately contacted Asheville police, who contacted South Elgin police. South Elgin police confirmed the identity of the two individuals as Heather Unbehaun and the missing child. Ms. Unbehaun, 40, was subsequently taken into custody, and Kayla has since been reunited with her father. Mr. Iskirka, in a statement issued through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, that he was overjoyed that Kayla is home safe. I want to thank the South Elgin Police Department, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and all of the law enforcement agencies who assisted with her case, Mr. Iskirka continued. I also want to thank all of the followers on the Bring Kayla Home Facebook page, who helped keep her story alive and were instrumental in spreading awareness. We ask for privacy as we get to know each other again and navigate this new beginning. South Elgin Chief of Police Jerry Krawczyk also thanks citizens across the country and other law enforcement agencies who worked so dedicatedly to help bring Kayla home. We are overjoyed to report that the child is in good condition and in good spirits since being reunited with her father, he said in a release. Law enforcement agencies and well-wishers were celebrating across several states as the case offered hope to investigators and families looking for people who've been missing for years. I certainly think this is a unique case, Asheville Police Lieutenant Jonathan Brown stated. It is unusual, it's not a case that we see routinely or often. He marveled at how Kayla's mother had managed to go undetected for years. What's most unusual is the ability to stay off the grid, if you will, for that period of time, he said. Typically we leave a technological breadcrumb and those are usually very easy and quick to be tracked down. This was not. Following Ms. Unbehaun's arrest in Buncombe County, she was charged with the felony offense of extradition, which she declined to waive. She posted $25,000 bond on Tuesday, June 6, and was released from custody, then turned herself in the following day in Kane County, Illinois, where she was booked on the abduction charge. The 40-year-old appeared before Judge Julia Yetter on Thursday, May 18, and has been released on bond with an electronic monitoring device. Kayla's father obtained an order of protection against Ms. Unbehaun, who is barred from being within 1,000 feet of his residence and cannot leave Illinois without court permission. The 47-year-old cold case of missing 22-year-old Kyle Clinkscales of Troup County may be warming up as Georgia state officials were able to positively identify his human remains discovered in Alabama. Kyle's car, a 1974 Ford Pinto, was recovered from a creek in Chambers County, Alabama back in 2021. Authorities said the car was still holding his belongings and his skeletal remains. Over a year later, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab was able to positively identify the human's remains as belonging to Kyle Clinkscales. His cause of death has not yet been determined or revealed. Officials say on the night of January 27, 1976, 22-year-old Kyle Wade Clinkscales left LaGrange, Georgia to head back to Auburn University where he was a student. Clinkscales never got back to the college and he nor his white 1974 Pinto runabout were ever found. That was nearly 47 years ago. Kyle's father John wrote a book about his missing son titled Kyle's Story, Friday Never Came. Friday was the day of the week he and his wife, Louise, thought they would see their son again back in 1976. Still, Troup County investigators pledged to find their son and bring him home. The morning of Tuesday, December 7, 2021, deputies with the Chambers County Sheriff's Office in Alabama were contacted by a 911 caller alerting them they discovered what appeared to be a car submerged in a creek off of County Road 38. Deputies at the scene found what appeared to be a Ford car with a 1976 Georgia tag with a Troup County decal. After running the records, investigators said the tag and VIN matched the car Clinkscales was last seen driving before he disappeared. Troup County Sheriff James Woodruff said the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was sifting through the Pinto and had already discovered bones, Clinkscales' wallet, as well as his driver's license. He expressed regret that the discovery was made after the death of Kyle's mother 11 months ago. Woodruff said decades of leads and interviews had been conducted with the goal of bringing the couple's son back to them. The question back then is still the main question today: how did Kyle's car end up in the creek? Had he wandered off Interstate 85, just a few miles away, and drove off the road? Was he murdered? Was his car pushed into the water? Investigators suspected there was foul play. 2 arrests were made in 2005 by Troup County Sheriff's investigators. Jimmy Earl Jones, 61, and Gene Johnson, 57, were arrested then. Both of them were from Troup County, and both were accused of hindering the investigation. Investigators quoted in a Fox 5 story at the time said a witness claimed Jones and Johnson were present when Kyle was murdered and his body placed in a drum of concrete. Neither of them were charged with murder. On January 7, 2012, Desiree Thompson was in a domestic violence situation with her husband, Edward Gibson. This was after police say her husband Edward Gibson physically abused her inside their California City home. The DA's office said in a release, Desiree Thompson went missing and the investigation into her death went cold for 10 years after no leads developed to find her whereabouts. Ms. Thompson had left her home at 6 p.m. that night to visit a friend and last spoke to her mother around 8:30 p.m. Desiree's mother asked Desiree to call again when she got home safely, but that phone call never came, and Desiree Thompson was never heard from again. She was last seen at a liquor store in California City that night. In July of 2022, the Kern County coroner confirmed Thompson's remains were found in the backyard of Jose William Lara's former home in California City. According to the DA's office, there was no new information on the disappearance for almost a decade, until 2 informants came forward with information about who had murdered Thompson. The informants reported that Lara had confessed to them what he had done in 2012 and they were able to assist law enforcement by providing invaluable leads that helped to solve the case. With the help of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Edwards Air Force Base, the Kern Regional Crime Lab, and the Department of Justice, the California City Police Department was able to establish that Lara killed Desiree with DNA and other forensic science evidence, according to the DA's office. The DA's office said the evidence at trial established that Lara had met Desiree as she walked home and taken her back to his home, where he killed her. Lara then disposed of Desiree's body in his backyard, where her remains were ultimately located by law enforcement. Before the jury deliberations, prosecutors and the defense made their closing arguments. Christine Antonios, the prosecuting attorney, said Lara was kicked out of a Diablo party, which filled him with rage. He wanted to take revenge on someone, so he killed Thompson, someone there, who he didn't know. The prosecutor said Javier Morfin Jr. and Javier Morfin Sr. told Detective Brandenburg Lara told them he killed Thompson in his house. He told them he took a girl home, he slammed her head into a fridge, he stabbed her, he burned her, he buried her, Antonio said. Desiree's burned remains were found in the backyard of Lara's former home. Mark Stamper, the 61-year-old's attorney, said Lara needed money and was doing side jobs at the time. He said Gibson hired Lara to bury Thompson. That's not just a reasonable conclusion, Stamper said. That is a common-sense conclusion, that the man who threatened his wife with a gun murdered her and hired someone else to get rid of the body, my client. Eyewitness News spoke with her mother after learning the news. She says she is still getting her thoughts together. The trial began on May 9, 2023. Lara faces a sentence of up to 25 years to life for the conviction. Sentencing is scheduled for June 16, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer commented on 3 verdicts, including George Richard Smith and Andrew Barraza, stating, "It is essential that increased violent crime rates are countered with effective prosecution. These murder verdicts reflect the dedication that prosecutors in the DA's homicide unit have toward seeking justice for victims of violent crime. Whether it is a cold case murder from a decade ago, a domestic violence homicide and cover-up, or a shooting on city streets, the DA's homicide unit is hard at work putting killers behind bars and providing justice to victims and their families." After deliberating for around 30 minutes, a jury gave a unanimous guilty verdict to Jose William Lara. They said the 61-year-old is guilty of first-degree murder. In 2002, a 60-year-old man used the name Edward C. to check into a squalid motel in an Arizona border town ahead of a scheduled surgery in Mexico. But he never checked out. His remains were found on September 8, 2002, inside the rented room in Nogales, Arizona. Although his fingerprints were recovered, authorities were unable to formally identify the man, who had listed an address in Florida, and he was unceremoniously interred as Nogales John Doe. Now, 2 decades later, a group of 19 students at Ramapo College of New Jersey have used genetic genealogy to assist Arizona authorities, ultimately cracking the case late last month, school officials told the Post. By analyzing unique patterns on DNA from a blood sample, Ramapo students identified the man as Donald Sigurd Hadland Jr., a 60-year-old who had ventured hundreds of miles from his New Mexico home to save money on a medical procedure. Ramapo, a public liberal arts college in MOA, launched its remote investigative genetic genealogy program in January, offering a 15-week, non-credit course to teach beginning-to-end forensic evidence skills for $6,000. What the students did was look at the genetic matches from his DNA profile that was developed to see if those were consistent with the family relationships of Mr. Hadland, Ramapo's Karen Binder told the Post. So going in, we had an idea who it might be, so we were looking to see, did the genetic matches fit the family tree for this individual? The Ramapo College of New Jersey Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center dug into the unsolved case in collaboration with the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit that has identified more than 65 previously unnamed victims since 2017. The Pima County, Arizona, Office of the Medical Examiner sought help from the groups earlier this year, Binder said. The original police investigation had gotten confusing when Edward C., the name used by the man found in the seedy motel, was linked to identity theft and fraud in St. Petersburg, Florida, where he had said he was from. A fingerprint search led to Donald Hadland, but investigators couldn't determine if that, too, was a fake name. DNA analysis from the extracted blood sample enabled Ramapo students to develop a profile of Nogales John Doe in the GEDmatch genealogy database. Since they already had a lead thanks to the fingerprint, students examined matches from the Nogales John Doe DNA profile and found some fairly close relatives who were consistent with Hadland's family tree, Binder said. We call it an investigative lead, she continued. When we come up with the identity of a person based on their genetic matches, we hand that over to the medical examiner, and that was done in early May. That led investigators to Hadland's ex-wife, with whom he had a son, Pima County forensic anthropologist Bruce Anderson told the Sacramento Bee. The woman told authorities she hadn't seen Hadland since the late 1980s when he left the pair, he said. The profiles of Hadland's son and 2 grandsons, which the trio released to the genealogy database, confirmed the man found in the Nogales motel was Hadland.
It could have been that both Edward and Donald were false identities used by this person, Binder said.
It could have been anybody, but once we looked at the DNA matches, we knew it was Mr. Hadland. Hadland died from an accidental opioid barbiturate overdose, Pima country officials confirmed to the Post.
Attempts to reach his relatives were unsuccessful.
Binder, who directs the IgG certificate program, said the Ramapo team built out Hadland's family tree using the GEDmatch.com genealogy database, the same method which helped investigators track down the notorious Golden State Killer in 2018, decades after Joseph James DeAngelo raped and murdered women across California. GEDmatch.com allows users to upload their DNA profiles in hopes of finding potential relatives, pulling genetic data from other popular genealogy platforms like Ancestry, 23andMe, or Family Tree DNA.
Binder, an investigative genetic genealogist, runs the program with David Gurney, an assistant professor of law and society who directs Ramapo's Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center. The two both have ties to Pima County, where authorities are investigating more than 1,200 unidentified remains cases, she said. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like the video, and click the bell icon to stay tuned.